Welcome to the Spinning Back Clique here on MMA Junkie, where we discuss the biggest stories of the week, take you for a spin, shall we say. And check out the panel we have this week. On my far left, we have Eric Nicksick from Extreme Couture. He's the general manager and one of the coaches out there as well. Goze from MMA Junkie Radio, a staple here on the Spinning Back Clique. All right, guys, here we go. Let's get into it. We got two big title fights to discuss, so we're going to go heavy here, 3 minutes each on both of these. Israel Adesanya defended his UFC title fight in what can only be described as a bizarre display of violence, is the way I've been putting it, or lack thereof. Now, guys, how did you score the fight? And also, who is to blame for the way this thing played out? Israel Adesanya, who chose Yoel Romero? Yoel Romero, who just had a different type of game plan that we're used to seeing, or the UFC for even making this come together? Goze, 3 minutes, you're on the clock.
You know, night of, I scored it for Yoel Romero, but just barely. That's the thing. Here's the issue right now. If you look at things the way they are, the culture of the UFC, I can't blame Israel Adesanya for the way he fought. He was fighting to protect what he has. If things make sense, where the rankings make sense, if you fight a great fight like Justin Gaethje and you don't get screwed, then maybe they'll put their foot on the gas a little bit more, but that's not the way things are. And they're making a lot of money right now, so I understand why he took his foot off the gas. So I think a little bit of blame is to be applied on everyone. The UFC for the culture that they created, the fighters, because let's be honest, fans, all week all you heard was these two guys are going to rip each other's heads off. They're bringing it to each other. I can understand why you would be upset, because that didn't really play out. That's not what they sold you. So I understand the frustration on that part. But it's the game that we have, and if you have a problem with it, I don't think you have a problem with Yoel Romero or Israel Adesanya. You have a problem with mixed martial arts, because this is going to happen from time to time.
All right, Eric, how did you score it, and who is to blame here? Hopefully you can get off the fence there. I think Goze said 33% UFC, 33% Yoel Romero, 30% Izzy. Maybe I'll give him a chance at the end, but how you go?
Well, I absolutely agree with Goze. I did have it close, and I did think Romero did maybe enough in the power and significant strikes in that fight. But here's where I have a problem, is Romero was handed a gift in this fight to be able to fight for a title and fight Israel in the setting that he has, coming off of 2 losses. I would have loved to seen Romero take the bull by the horns and attack and go after this guy and really put a statement on him. Where, you know, I get it. Israel, he probably fought safe. He probably just did enough to win the fight, and that's exactly what happened. But for me, you have a title shot opportunity. You're not sure when you're going to get that opportunity again. You got to go after this guy. You got to make a statement. You got to go beat this guy and make it happen. I just wanted to see more out of Romero to solidify that. Even Mergliata, here's a guy who wanted to call timidity on both fighters. Like, we need something to score. So at that point, man, I could see the way he was working round 1. It made a lot of sense to conserve some energy, but I was hoping to see him put on the gas pedal maybe in 4 and 5.
Yeah, and you know, Dana White actually took some of the blame backstage in the post-fight press conference. He said, I'm just a goofy guy sometimes that likes to see matchups. He says the matchmakers were not in favor of it, but it went down. He's 43 years old, guys, even though he's in great shape, says he can fight another 10 years, says he'll be back. Do you guys think he'll get another crack at the title?
No, I think that was his opportunity, and I think he let it slip through the cracks. Like Eric said, he could have done a little bit more. He had nothing to lose. This was the time to do it.
How about you, Eric? You want to see it again?
I don't, and I don't see it happening anytime soon. You know, there's a couple guys at 85, I think, that are coming up through the ranks. Paulo Costa. You got Edmund. You got a couple other kids that are coming up through the ranks at 185 that are going to make some noise. I just don't see it happening right now. You have new blood in Darren Till as well, so it's getting exciting.
And Cannonier. Don't forget about Cannonier.
Absolutely.
All right, let's move on here. Wheelie defended her UFC strawweight title in what many are considering the greatest, or one of the greatest fights in MMA. Some have even said the greatest fight they've ever seen. Definitely, I think we can all agree, greatest WMMA fight ever. Greatest WMMA title fight ever. I mean, there's so many ways to go with this. It was a classic, guys. What did you learn about seeing both women's in this instant classic? And, in your opinion, where does it rank? We'll start off with 3 minutes on the clock. Eric, you go first.
Absolutely number 1. And I was blown away by
number 1 women's or ever?
You know, you can argue that ever. You know, you can argue that ever. Okay. You can. I think you can argue that. But definitely women's. And I just think it shows the evolution of the sport. It shows how far these females have come as far as closing that gap. You look at Valentina. Man, I think she can take out some of those guys. Like, she's unbelievable at what she does. So praise to these women and how hard they've been fighting and what they've been doing. But that fight was a barn burner. absolute barn burner. It could have gone either way. I think that they got it right. I think on significant damage alone, when you're a judge and you look at the hematomas on Joanna's face and the damage that she implemented, Weili implemented on her, then absolutely I feel like it was scored correctly. But as far as the landscape, you saw all the females that were getting on Twitter and talking about it. I think they had that great moment, and that was that fight. That's going to be the emphasis of what they want to do from here on out. So I loved it.
All right, how about you, Goze?
I thought it was a great fight for sure. Greatest female fight of all time. Greatest fight. The only thing I think that was missing was maybe them hitting the ground a little bit, because then you encompass every part of mixed martial arts, which is great. But it was a great fight, and whoever's in charge of, on the cusp of John Jones and Alexander Gustafsson, their fight getting into the Hall of Fame, whoever's in charge there, you might need to look for another job, because it's very easy that this fight's going to be one of, if not next, it deserves to be in there. Just to see the way it affected everybody, not just in our sport, but outside of the sport. You look at Twitter and just the reactions that everybody had. Those two girls gave everything. And for as much props as they deserve for that fight, the coaching in that was tremendous, because there were a lot of adjustments made. Great game plan by both of them. It was definitely one of my favorite fights of all time.
And real quick, guys, what can each lady take from this? I'll let each one of you take one of the ladies. What can Zhang Weili take from this? I mean, she tested herself, went 5 rounds, dug deep.
That's just it. It's the cage experience that she got to gain from having a formidable opponent like Joanna. I think just that you understand that you're willing to dig deep and get this and pull this victory out. It tells you something about your fighter. It tells you something about your coaching staff. All that experience is just invaluable. So what she gained from that, I think, is huge. And for Joanna, she's always going to be that technician. She's always going to be right there and fighting for titles. She deserves more title opportunities, I think, by this showing. So I wouldn't hang my hat or head down on that performance alone, just because she didn't get the W. In a lot of ways, she did win, in my mind.
Goze, do you endorse another Joanna title shot at some point, or even immediately?
I think it's insane that we may actually see this fight 3 times in our lifetime. I believe they do deserve an immediate rematch. It was a great fight. How do you not? I think every other female in that division would probably look at that and say, yeah, they deserve it.
Yeah, you know what? For me, I want to see it, but I want a little bit of time off for both. Maybe Joanna might have to take one matchup, because you also got Rose Namajunas and Jessica Andrade coming up. All right, guys, let's move on to the next topic. On Friday night, we had 2 G's, straight up G's, man. Habib Nurmagomedov and Tony Ferguson, not in a fight. That's going to happen in about a month or so. They had a press conference, 45 minutes long, very, very intense. They went at it. Now, I know this, none of that counts towards the official score or anything like that, but I still want to know, who won this one, guys? Tony or Habib? 2 minutes around the clock. Goes back to you.
I think I'm going to give this one 10-9 for Tony Ferguson. It was very close, but what I thought was odd is when you think about Tony Ferguson, he speaks the same way he fights. He's very fast-paced and he's in your face. And Habib has probably already seen something like that in Conor McGregor. However, I feel like Tony Ferguson pushed more buttons than Conor McGregor did. Habib just seemed a little bit more bothered. He seemed to engage a little bit more. I love what Habib said in the sense that you always feel like he takes everything seriously, but in him saying that he needs this fight for his legacy, that means a lot to me. If I'm a fan and I want to buy a ticket to this fight, I know both these dudes are going to bring it that night. And I thought it was really impressive. I just think Habib, sometimes you got to let that belt do the talking for you. It's massive, the fact that you have that, and sometimes you don't have to play the other guy's game.
Yeah, Eric, these guys were talking about you're a fake Mexican and you're this and I'm the real mountain guy, was what Habib was telling them. Habib even kicked his belt. Even Conor McGregor didn't really get under the nerves of Habib, but Tony did. Right. So how did you score this one?
Well, we saw what happened when you get Habib mad. And what he did in the clinic that he put on with Conor and then what ensued after was scary. Right? Yeah. So I would have scored it for Habib. I don't want to try to get under that guy's skin the way that Tony did, but I do feel that is going to be bulletin board material when he goes back to AK and finishes up this camp. That dude's going to train with fire under his ass, and he's going to get after it. So I don't know if that's the right guy to kind of give that bulletin board material to in Habib. He wants to prove a point, and he wants to beat guys in a fashion that, to me, is worse than just getting knocked out. You always have that excuse when you get knocked out, I got caught. When you get beat the way Khabib beats people, he demoralizes you. He beats you up. He leaves you yelling for help. Yeah. So, I don't know if that's the right guy to push the buttons on.
You know, you can always tell by the heat and the intensity of a press conference by when you have the security team kind of creeping up and Dana White, you know, kind of doing a little shimmy where he wants to get in between. And, folks, it was present, so it was pretty intense. But I'm going to go with 10-9 Tony, although Khabib almost tied it up. I almost gave out a 10-10 round with that kick of the belt. Anyways, let's move on to Sugar Sean and Neil Magny. Both guys came back after lengthy absences, we'll call them. You know, they had a little ordeal, each of them, with USADA. They came back and they won. So, guys, I want to know, are they officially back? Or is there still some more work to put in? They're kind of in different spots here. O'Malley's still rising through the ranks. He's young, has got a bright future. Magny's a veteran, you know what I mean? Both in stacked divisions. Eric, 1 minute on the clock. You go first.
Yeah, I think those guys have always kind of been around, and they've stayed relevant in my mind. Well, the thing that I want to give props to is Tim Welch, is Sugar Shane's or Sugar coach. Is you know, in that time when he's had off, they worked on skill sets that he needed to close the gap. So behind the scene, you saw this kid getting better and better and better, and never missed a beat. The mental reps and the training is what keeps you sharp, and that's exactly what they did, and that's exactly why he went in and implemented that game. So Neil Magny, yeah, and he fought a tough kid in Leach. I was very surprised the way that turned out. But with Neil, again, he comes from a great camp. You know, he's constantly training. He's probably coaching some up there, staying sharp. So both of those guys doesn't really surprise me, but I'm glad Neil got that win because he's a very good opponent at welterweight. So he mixes things up very well for those guys.
Goze, are they back?
They're back. It's now or never for Neil Magny. I mean, you got to put together something and make this your run. And Sean, I'm very impressed so far, man.
All right, you saw the work that they did. Both guys came back, and good on them to fight back on USADA and, you know, get some reduced sentences and mostly importantly clear the name. Guys, let's end with this. Something unfortunate happened at the T-Mobile on Saturday. Brian Ortega, you know, highly ranked UFC featherweight, loved by many, man. A lot of fans and media. He went a little gangster there. He slapped a member of TKZ's party. Who's that? That's the Korean Zombie. These guys have had words. I get it, and I think there was a warning. You're going to get slapped. You know, if I see you. He followed through with it, and we thought it was maybe something where boys will be boys and might get brushed under the carpet, but apparently a police report has been filed, so it is a serious thing. You know, the camp said history. I get it. But, guys, that kind of situation could unravel quick. What are we doing here? What do we need to change, Goze? 1 minute on the clock.
Well, there has to be some sort of penalty. That's the whole thing is, you know, on the cusp of what just happened with Khabib and Conor in Las Vegas, this is the last place you want something like this to happen again. Maybe Brooklyn, of course. But, I mean, that was just such a black eye. Yeah, that was such a black eye for the sport. And they were warned the night before. You know, they know this has got to be a safe environment. It's got to be somewhere where you can take your kids if you want to watch the fights and not have to worry about fights breaking out around civilians. It's just not a good look. The problem is these type of antics are probably going to get those two that fight. And I don't know if you want to send that kind of message. It's a slippery slope.
Big E, what'd you think when you heard about this or if you witnessed it yourself?
Well, I agree with Goze. It is definitely a black eye. It's something that it shouldn't how we carry ourselves in especially in public. There's kids around, there's people, there's eyes, there's everything going on. It just didn't make sense to me at the time. The guy's a civilian, if you will. You know, again, I don't know all the facts of the situation, but if you did slap a guy, there's probably going to be a police report filed. Everything else, it just doesn't make any sense for me to do it at that venue the way he did it. And you know what? At the end of the day, I'm not trying to piss off the Korean Zombie.
We're all in agreement. All right, guys. Good job today. Shout out to John Morgan. He'll be back next week. And, of course, my man Cold Coffee behind the lenses there, always making us look better than we really are. All right, coming up this week, keep it locked on MMA Junkie. We got full coverage for Bellator 241 and UFC on ESPN Plus 28 down in Brazil. We'll watch it all for you, and we'll be back next week to discuss it all on the Spinning Back Clique.
Hey sports fans, if you want to see more videos like this, check out some of our other ones right here. And if you like what you see, hit the subscribe button and stick around for more from USA Today Sports.